Welcome to the Whiskey Vault.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Rex. He's a level 3 whiskey sommelier, and I am wearing a t-shirt.
Okay, so 3 people gave us this bottle in the span of about a week and a half.
Okay.
So they were Josh Galladay. He's definitely a patron saint.
Josh Galladay, your patron saint of whiskey. He only gets 2 dings.
Okay. And then we've got Leonard Lee.
Leonard Lee.
Leonard Lee.
You magnificent bastard.
Fight.
And finally, Tony Arrington.
Tony Arrington, you magnificent bastard.
Fight.
So,
Now hold on, just quickly before we dive into Legend.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Or Legent, maybe?
Sure.
Okay, this whiskey, when I first heard about it, I didn't do any research. I just kind of heard some rumors of it.
Yeah.
And I was so excited that when I found out what it actually was, I got a little disappointed.
Hold on, it smells...
But it's not fair to the bourbon, but I will explain my disappointment. Imagine if you were told that you were going to be given a flying car.
Yes.
And it turned out it was just a different kind of airplane.
Well, I like airplanes.
See? That was my reaction to this whiskey.
Right.
I thought it was this one thing,
right.
And I was like, what? That's crazy.
Right.
And then I found out what it really was, and I was like, well, it's still cool.
No, you thought it was a game-changing moment.
Yes.
And then you realized it was a ticket for a coach seat.
Yeah.
Okay.
But still good.
Right.
And really cool.
Okay.
And still stretching its wings.
So I don't know anything about the background of this whiskey. I just saw the top of the cork.
That's
Kentucky on one side, Japan on the other. What's going on here?
So this is... Well, smell it first and tell me what you think. It's a bourbon. I'll just start there. It's a bourbon.
It's
a bourbon and only a bourbon.
Bourbon and only bourbon. Well, it smells classic on the nose.
But it's very sweet and heavy on the cherries on the nose.
And then I get, in the back, I'm getting that barrel bitterness. Ooh. And the sweetness shows up on the taste.
Yes.
Man, that's a sweet whiskey.
It's deep, dark, sweet, and like ours went brown sugar molasses sweet.
Yeah.
This is dark sweet, but it's dark fruit sweet.
Alright, so what kind of dark fruits? Because between the two, I'm still leaning in the molasses direction for this.
Well, there is molasses in there, but I'm saying I'm also getting like the dark cherry and like a almost fig type, like rich, dark fruit.
Yeah, I can
not
see,
light and pretty
I can see elements of that.
And then at the very end, way after all of that round, rich flavor has sort of enveloped you, there's a little bit of barrel spice.
No, I'm getting more barrel spice than you are, both on the nose and the taste. And this brown sugar, it's brown sugar mixed with white granulated sugar. Just the sweetness is ramped up to a dessert level.
Okay, so what I thought this was, I thought that this was a blend.
I'm not getting apple, which you often get in a bourbon. What is this, though?
I was trying to tell you.
It's a one truly.
Set it down.
I'm telling you.
And let me explain.
You don't want to dive in. I'm diving in.
Yeah,
it's a one true bourbon, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, partially finished wine and sherry cask. See, I can do your job too.
You have no idea what I was about to say.
That thing you were about to say.
That's not what I was going to say.
All right, no, you were going to say two.
That's not what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
What I thought this was a blend of Japanese whiskey and bourbon.
Because it says Kentucky, Japan.
Yeah, and I thought that would be one of the most interesting things I've ever heard of coming from a large brand.
Sure.
Because it's Jim Beam, it's Suntory and Beam working together.
Right.
Right? It's Fred No from Jim Beam.
Sure.
And, what's his name? Shinji Fukio, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is a 5th distiller for Suntory.
Okay.
And I thought, man, if they blended Japanese malt whiskey, or even grain whiskey, with bourbon from Kentucky, that would be something that's never happened in the world before.
Huh.
And I thought that'd be cool. That's not what happened.
Right.
What did happen was they let Shinji from Suntory blend the bourbon.
Okay.
So they selected and crafted for years a bunch of wine cask finished bourbons.
Right.
and then they blended it back into a base of just the solid Jim Beam.
Okay.
And that's what this is. This is fancy, super fancy Jim Beam blended by a Japanese distiller.
You know that's interesting about this? As sweet as this is on the nose and on the front end and even midway through, by the time you get to the finish, it's kind of dry.
Mm-hmm. And I like that.
It goes from very sweet on the front end to, by the time you're done, you sit with it for a minute, it's kind of dry.
To me, this actually makes this product closer to the original Japanese whiskey industry, because what you had was, you had in Shinjiro Tori, you had a guy who took a whiskey that was made commonly somewhere else and then altered it for the Japanese palate.
Okay.
So what's cool about this is actually closer to being in touch with the origins of Japanese whiskey.
Sure.
Because it's taking another country's product and then applying it to a Japanese palate. It's just, instead of doing it with Scotch, it's doing it with bourbon. So at that level, that's kind of cool.
So I am comparing this to all of the bourbons I've recently had in memory, and I'm not really finding a lot just to sit back and relax and enjoy and savor. It's not extremes, but it's kind of extreme. It yanks you in different directions. You got wham, sweet elements. Not like a brand French whiskey, but there's, really sweet elements there. And by the time it's finished, I get it's dry, there's a little bit barrel bitter, and there's some cherry in there. There's dark fruits that you mentioned, but the molasses is, I think, where that sweetness is coming from, with the brown sugar and then just white granulated sugar. It's yanking me around a little bit too much.
It's complicated.
It's tugging on me.
Okay, so we're gonna switch to another gift from Leonard Lee.
Yes.
The magnificent bastard.
Leonard Lee.
He sent us Few Bourbon. Now, this is coming out of Evanston, Illinois.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I'm not going to go into the website copy because it annoyed the shit out of me.
You know where the name came from.
But I do like where the name came from, and it makes me like them more than I did. And I don't know what their whiskey tastes like.
Right.
But I do like where the name came from.
Tell us where the name came from.
The name... So, one of the women who helped really push through Prohibition in Illinois, her name...
it's from the temperance movement.
Frances Elizabeth Willard. So when they finally got the laws passed so they could distill in Evanston, Illinois again, they named the distillery after her. That's great. That's great. I love that.
It's like naming a men's big and tall shop after you.
Yeah, it really would be. The Daniel. I'm like, mother. and also hairbrushes. And extensive selection of hair products.
Okay, on the nose.
This is corn, rye, and malt.
Yeah.
70-20-10.
On the nose, comparing it to the Legent, whatever. On the nose, this feels a little bit more rich, rounded off.
Yeah, to me it's thin. To me, this is thinner.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, we're on different wavelengths.
We really are right now.
I was getting different stuff on the Legent.
They're using everything from 5 to 30 gallons.
It feels more cohesive.
Okay, that I can buy. It is one note.
It's not things pulling you in opposite directions. It feels more cohesive. It feels more rounded off. It feels like more of a thing.
So you're using words rounded off. I'm taking that in the flavor profile, which I'm not getting. But if you mean that it's become one focused thing, that I can get behind.
So comparing it to this, for a reference point.
Yeah.
This felt like, on the nose, there's a spike. It's probably the alcohol, some barrel bitterness in there. This, though, I'm not getting that spike. The flavors are more smoothed off, rounded off in the nose. I haven't tasted yet, but in the nose, it's not something that's just like poking me in any. No,
it's very subdued. Yeah. It's almost soft smelling.
Yeah, and then it's a cohesive thing. I can tell there's going to be a couple different notes, but it's not going to be a whiskey of extremes.
So
I get the dusty corn.
I get dusty corn, then starts with a little bit of it. Starts to spike a little bit with like almost a rye note, and then it immediately gets sweet.
Yeah, it does almost turn into yeah.
But it's like the rye's creeping out.
Yeah.
So it goes boom, burst, and then a little bit of rye, and then sugar. Just ends in sugar.
You just get the inkling of that rice spice. But it never turns into just the full-on black licorice anise note.
And it turns into like a sort of barrel char sugar. Like it's a bitter, which weird is, it's a bitter sweetness. The aftertaste is still sweet
So.
and simultaneously bitter.
It's like caramelized sugar.
Yeah, where it's blackened a little bit,
Yeah.
and you get
So like on the creme brulee, if they
Yeah,
torch it and it turns a little bit black,
or they get it a little too far,
the caramelized sugar. Yeah.
but burnt.
Yeah, I actually enjoy this better than the Legend.
This still tastes thinner to me.
Well, what's the proof? I think it's probably
46.5.
This was I think 47.
7.
So
That's not a big enough difference.
Did you notice that everything on here is part of the bottle except the proof? That's a sticker. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they're proving it differently from country to country.
No, they're probably just trying to get all the bottling done first and didn't yet have the information of the blend.
So I will say, yeah, it does feel a little bit thinner, but it's not a thin whiskey. It feels thinner than the Legends. And I'm getting the dusty corn, that caramelized sugar, and then there's, yeah, that rye spice that just starts to come into it, but it never goes full on rye.
I almost got a weird coffee note at the end of that one.
And I think there's one more thing. I don't know if it's coffee.
Burnt coffee.
There's one more thing in addition to those notes. It's a little like a Fuji apple.
I don't know if I got in that.
Yeah, Fuji apple. The finish. The
Okay.
finish. A little bit of Fuji apple there.
Well, that does us.
Are you done?
I'm done.
He has been done. Here's fighting, stealing, and drinking.
If you fight, may you fight for a friend.
If you steal, may you steal a lover's heart.
And if you drink, may you drink with us.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us in the Whiskey Vault. Don't forget to throw in a like, hit that subscribe button on the bottom right, and drop a question or comment down below.